So anytime you make a change, the asterisk is going to show up. So if I do save, it's going to ask me where, and I recommend going into your UDK game content maps custom folder and saving it in there with your all the maps that you have. If you save it outside of the Unreal directory structure, you can have some problems. It might not see it, so it can be kind of an issue. The other thing to remember is Unreal by default doesn't always open up some of these other custom-made packages, so you might have to open it before you actually open your level. If you do it the other way around, it won't work. Because when you open up something and there's no assets available, it basically usually writes out, just blanks out whatever the information was supposed to be. So I'm going to do save, and now it's saved everything. And now that it's relocated, I can go into custom, and I got a bunch of stuff in here. So let's go in and find the material demo. There we go, and open up, and you'll see it's grayed out, and you also see this little icon. That means it's not loaded. So it's not fully memory, just getting preview. So if I do fully load, now that goes away, and now this turns white, and I know that it's actually available and I can utilize it. If you choose them, they'll just automatically load up. So it's one of those things, it's an automated process. So now I'm ready to create a new material. So I right click over space, I'll do material again, materials, and I'm just going to call this brick 256 material, and you can do whatever you want with that. Okay, so this is the interface for working with. It's similar to Kismet. You hold down a left mouse button, you can move it around. And what these are is that these are all expressions, and they enable you to do different things. So in some ways, it's almost kind of like Photoshop plus other editing all combined. This is the main thing we want, and there's diffuse, which is your color. There's specular, which is the shininess or reflection of light source, and then there's normal. So in order to bring in stuff, if I do go in and choose texture, the most basic thing you have is there's a texture sample, and I'm automatically going to hook this up to diffuse, and the first thing it's going to say is there's nothing there, missing input texture. So I need to grab a texture. So if I hit the texture sample, you'll see that there's this field, and right now there's a green arrow, but nothing loaded. So if I go back and say I want my color and highlight that, and then let's go back to the, bring this back. I think I'm going to turn off the minimization just to make things a little easier. So we can kind of hop back and forth a little quicker and minimize this. We'll use the down here a little bit, not that much, in this demo, and get that a little smaller. So highlight that, we got the color highlighted, and hit it, and what it'll do is it'll bring in that texture. So now you see that that's loaded, and let's kind of make it a little bit bigger so you can see kind of what's happening. I'll load the close the function libraries just to make it a little easier. There we go. Okay, so now I'm ready to go in and grab the specular. So I'll highlight the specular, and if I do texture sample, new texture sample, whatever I have selected will automatically get loaded. So that's another way you can do this, and I'd load this up to the specular channel. Now if I turn off this channel, so if I break the link, you'll see that what's actually creating the look right now is this highlight, and you can come in and there's different ways to adjust it, increase and decrease the power, but just so you can see what that's doing on its own, as opposed to when it's combined. So you can now see the fuller effect. And then finally we'll highlight the normal map. Don't crash, looks like okay. And when you make changes, sometimes it'll recompile the texture, so just have to be aware of that. And then the normal map will bring that data in, and that's going to create 3D. And if I go back and break this link, oh, actually I think I can toggle these on and off. Let's just break them, it's easier, just for the sake. And this you're not going to see anything because nothing's happening, because what it does is it alters the other information based on what you see. So now we have our normal map, And you can see in the cylinder and also with the box that you start to get a much greater sense of depth. And also normal maps or high resolution textures are going to be mandatory for an Unreal 4 most likely, so it's just something you kind of want to get used to. So I'm done with this texture. Hit save. Give it a second, make sure it's off before you close it. We got the asterisks up again, so we want to come in and save these changes. And we can come in and assign this to something if we'd like, just to see what it looks like. And we'll assign it in here as well. And we'll just do a build all. And see what we got. Close, play from here. So, not that bad. It looks like I might have to invert the map. Yeah, you can see the grout's actually sticking out, so there's some details. But all in all, you can see it's pretty effective for just taking a single photograph, and there's a lot of rich depth to it as well. So, let's save this one more time, make sure. And now let's go back to Photoshop, and I'll show you another image. So let's open up. This is from the same Blender site. And this is a panel. And first thing I'm going to do, this to save a little bit of time, is I'm going to grab the crop tool and I'm going to come in and basically just crop off one of these windows so that we're dealing with 3 windows and it's closer to a square as well. Okay. Resizing the image, so go into image size. You can see this is pretty big, so I'll do 1024 by 1024. Hit OK. Now we got it resized. Don't really notice much of a difference. I got my rulers up so I can start to do some work with my guides, and the reason I do that, it just makes it easier to select everything, especially if you want to go back and do changes on this. So we'll come in and do that, and do that, and that. And what I'm doing is I'm just taking where the frame of the window is and just kind of marking it out. So you can see, and then the top. And I have it, you just want to make sure under view that you have snap, and then you can do snap to guides on, and then all this stuff will pop, and it just makes your life a lot easier and you get consistent precision. If not, you can get sloppy edges and detailing. So I have this set up, and what we're going to do is go to channels briefly to kind of look at this, and what we're going to do is create a semi-transparent window. So if I turn all these items off, you'll see that right now this image is made out of 3 basically black and white channels, and when you combine them, R, G, and B, red, green, and blue, the different channels, you get basically full color. Now, in order to add an alpha map, which would be the next channel, which is usually represented by A, so you have RGBA, you can click right here and just do new channel, and the instant you add it, it'll automatically give you an alpha channel. And you don't have to worry about the name or any of these settings, just hit OK. So the instant you bring it up, it's not enabled, and if I turn this on, you'll see that everything is red. Red goes back to this technique before digital photography was around called Ruby Lift. I'm not quite sure why they do it. GIMP does a much better job. You get real-time transparency in this program, you don't. So you just be aware that if something is red, it's going to basically disappear. So if I go in and let's just experiment with this so I can show you some other techniques. If I have this highlighted, and let's just turn off the other channels. So you can see this is just black at this point when I created it, and you can see it says alpha, it's basically 8-bit. So I'm going to come in and select this space, and then hold down the shift key to add, and come in and select here. Oh, let me undo that. That was a little sloppy. And do it one more time. Okay, and then I'll go in and do fill, switch it back from pattern to foreground color, which is white. There's also an option for just coming down and saying I want it white. And now I have an alpha channel where if I turn this on now with everything else, you'll see that this is masked out and this part isn't. So let's see what happens with this. When I go to save this, I had mentioned before we did the BMP, but because we have an alpha channel, we're going to go to the targa, and I'll do the same thing. Make sure there's no spaces in the name. Window 1020 RGBA 1024. And if I wanted, I could do it color. It's kind of implied, but or diffuse. Sometimes people just use a D to identify that. Make sure alpha channels is on, which it should be by default, and go to save. And what you're going to do is you'll get options. Now 24-bit will not save the alpha, 32-bit will, so you have to make sure that you save it to that, and hit OK. And now we're good to go and to bring this into Unreal. So I'll do an import, and we will grab this new texture right here and do an open. And we get similar options, name, those types of things, materials. And if I wanted to, I could basically create a material from this. Let me just show you what that does. And hit OK. And give it a second to import the image. And you can see now we have a material. And all it does is it adds the MAT. So you're going to have to rename it anyway. You could just right click and just say rename window MAT, okay, for material. And now let's double click and open this up and see what we have. We have this loaded up in the diffuse channel automatically, and this is RGB coming off, so this is what we're going to get. And then this represents alpha, so if you do the black, that's basically RGB combined. If you want to do individual channels, you would do it this way, so you can play and mess around and get slightly different stuff. You can see that's just grayscale now because it's only taking the one channel as opposed to combining it. And the other thing that we want to do is want to apply it to opacity, but you can see opacity is grayed out. And that's because the current material blend mode is set to blend opaque. So if you choose and you open it up, you'll see there's a mask option which will do 0 to 1, and there's also an alpha composite. And if I choose that, and then I come in and assign the opacity, that's what we get. Now I can adjust some of the settings to make it more or less transparent, but hopefully you can see the fact that basically I have the mask backwards, if you will. So I'm going to go back, save this out, this way I don't have to come in again. The clip value you can use to adjust this as well. Okay, go, and then you can see this. I'm just going to save this real quick, just in case something crashes. Shouldn't be a problem, but just so we know. Go back to Photoshop, and now I'm going to take this alpha mask, and I'll turn off everything else just so you can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to deselect so I have everything selected, and I'm just going to do image, adjust, invert. And now you'll see that I inverted this, so now now we should get different results. So I can come back, make sure I got all my layers on, file, save. Oh, actually I don't even need to do a save as, just do a save. It's rewrote it. Now this basically saves it in the package. However, the nice technique they have is you highlight the texture, you right click, and you do re-import texture. And because it's the same place, it can go back to it and bring it in. And now if I go to update this, you'll see that I have the updated change real time. So that's a pretty awesome technique that everything's linked, and now you can see you can use this as a way to actually create a mirror and stuff. I could continue and take maybe one channel, and let's just take the alpha and see what happens if we do it the specularity. So now we have a sheen that exists. Let me do a sphere so you can kind of see it. There's a light sheen that kind of shows up depending on the angle of the metal, which can help. And there's a bunch of different things you can do. There's also a distortion option, so you can play around with that, and it'll actually distort whatever's behind it. Not seeing it here much, but it's like refraction in some other programs. So we have that set up, and that's good to go. And that's just how to do a basic transparency. We'll save that. Now the last, let me just save this one more time. File save. Okay, and Final thing I'm going to show you is just how to work with existing. There's a lot of existing textures that ship with Unreal. Let me just go in and just show you the one that I find has a lot of stuff as environments. However, just be aware that there's other stuff. So if you go up to UDK, there's a bunch of textures that are available, and if you go to Engine, there's some default stuff as well. A lot of it's for interface and those types of things. So I can say I just want textures and work with it, and you can bring in any of these are fair game to actually load, and you can see there's different things like this is a reflection map, so you can actually create the illusion that you have real-time reflections. There's a bunch of different things that exist, and you can just kind of browse through. You can also see there's something like this with foliage, which if I double click, I can find out basically has an alpha mask on it. If I turn these off, and then I can see the RGB channels, find out the information, all those types of things, re-import, etc. So you get some controls that you can work with, and you can go and see how other things are done. Now, similarly, you can come in and look at materials, and you can see there's our material listed. And let's go and just look at, let's see if I can find the water. It's probably the one. Let me go down into environment, or UT3, and let's go into environment. And there's usually a water. Let me just go back up to UT3 and type in water real quick just to find it. Okay, water, water, water. Oh, it's not that. It's slime? No. It's like the blob material. So let's go in and just see if we can find something that looks like that. Reason is it's just going to make it a little easier for us to do the demo. I just kind of want to show you basically how you'd make something like lava. Let's look at translucent goo and see what that does. Okay, so you can see there's actually a shimmer on this texture. It's translucent and has different looks and everything. And if you zoom out and look at it, you see it's pretty insane the way that it's built. It's really insane. Now I can come in here and try to make an edit to this, but the problem is it'll corrupt the package. So you don't want to do that because it can crash the computer and cause all kind of issues. So instead you can do Control Alt, which does border select, and you can select all the expressions. Now the only thing you're not going to get is the actual connections, and you can see at this point we have one for normal, one for distortion, one for opacity, and one for emissive, which is basically giving off light. So we'll have to remember that. And now I can go and do a new material, save it in our old material package we just created, material demo, and materials, and then I'm going to do goo modified material. Hit OK. And now there's nothing in here, but if I do paste here, now it brings in everything I just had, at least it should. Let's go back here again and do Control C, bring it Control V, paste. There it goes. It's because I created the material after. Something up with the buffer. And now we can come in and take this and hook this up to diffuse. And where was the opacity? Okay, so now you can see there's a reflection map with that. There's different colors, whole bunch of stuff. The normals, I believe, came off here. And then there's also a couple of other settings that they had. There's something about translucency as well, but let's just work with what's hooked up at this point. Now there's some colors that are feeding into this. And what this is basically using what they call, you can add these if you do constants. So constant with a single is just black and white, with two, and then when you do three, it's RGB, so you can adjust the values. So this is basically an RGB, and you can basically make a texture just by loading up one of these and just attaching it to the diffuse. So you don't even need a map to create a material. So you can literally do something like that, and now we have this green material. So you can see they're pretty powerful as far as what you can do. There's a lot of other operations. This is kind of like Photoshop where you're adding and multiplying layers, so they're bringing in different things, a reflection map plus the texture overlaid with this. So they're kind of complicated, but the one thing I like to do with this is let's change this to 1, and it'll give it a second to redo it, and you can see all of a sudden I already have an orange look. So pretty quickly you can start to play around with these and get some different look, and then I can come into this brown and let's do a 1 there, see what happens. Like I said, you kind of have to play around, but this is kind of a way, or let's do this one and see what happens. So this isn't necessarily lava, but you can see we've completely changed the characteristics of this. And you can go in and you can look at some of the different, there's different things that are animating these and working, and like I said, there's a lot that you can do with materials. But just to kind of give you a basics of a way to reverse engineer an existing material, and now I save that. And now I have a modified version of this which I can access and work. And there's also something called a material instance. And what it is a copy of a material that enables you to modify identified channels. So you can basically copy it and then just switch out dynamically different materials or textures. And that's actually how most of the red and blue team stuff actually works. So that's it.